Hi everyone, welcome to Doc Hill's Study, where I help you get ready for your National 5 biology assessments. In this video we'll be walking through questions from an official SQA paper. The paper and the marking guide are both produced by the Scottish Qualifications Authority, the SQA, and all rights to that material belong to them. I'm using these resources strictly for educational purposes here on this non-commercial channel to support students like you in preparing for your exams. I'll be using the SQA's marking guide to highlight what answers are accepted, but keep in mind it usually only shows some of the correct answers and doesn't explain the reasoning behind them. That's where I come in. For each question, I'll walk you through the thinking process, explain what the question is really asking, and point out some of the common pitfalls to avoid. If anything doesn't make sense to you, or you want to ask about a specific point, feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you find this helpful, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future walkthroughs. Let's get started. Right, this is question 6 in section 2 of the 2024 National 5 biology exam. So let's have a look at the question. The diagram represents a reflex arc when a person touches a cactus plant. Okay, so let's have a think about this. Let's just run through what we can see in the diagram as a bit of revision for our learning. So the cactus is what we call a stimulus. It's got sharp spikes on it and needles. So when somebody touches it, it activates the receptor cell, the receptor neuron, in the hand. So we have the receptor cell here, and then a sensory neuron transfers that signal up to the spinal cord, which is going to be in here. And the cell body of the sensory neuron, by the way, is in slightly outside the spinal cord, and the spinal cord, the sensory neuron enters the spinal cord, synapses with an interneuron or a relay neuron. Some people call it interneuron, some people call it relay neuron. And that in its turn synapses with a motor neuron, which causes a muscle to activate, and that removes the hand from the cactus. So all of that's grand. We've named all the parts. We've got the spinal cord here. We've got an interneuron. We've got a sensory neuron. We've got a motor neuron. Let's see what we're being asked to do. Well, A is to identify neurons Y and Z, but we've just done that. So let's have a look again at the diagram. This is the sensory neuron. So we probably don't need to write sensory neuron, we'll just write sensory. But you can write neuron. I think some people spell it with an E as well. And Z is the motor neuron. And I've seen that spelled with motoneuron, all one word. Okay. State how messages are transferred at a synapse. Okay, so the synapse there's a gap you can see in the synapse here. This is the gap, and it's a chemical message that passes from one axon of the neuron into the receptors, the dendrites essentially of the downstream neuron. And it's a chemical signal that passes across there. Then an electrical signal is passed, then a chemical signal is passed, then an electrical signal is passed. And so as a result, the signal is passed on, right? So every nerve has to fire a new signal. And it's a chemical message that causes that nerve to fire the signal. So we're going to write down chemicals. Okay. And good. And it says identify the effector in this reflex arc. Well, the effector is essentially the opposite of the receptor. It's the thing that makes your body move. So there's a couple of different types of effectors. Glands can cause a response to a stimulus as well. So your tears will flow. But in this particular case, it's a muscle. So the muscle is the effector. So what you might do there is you might think, because we've got and if you're just being asked for an effector, you've got to make sure that you're talking about this reflex arc here. So you could put a gland in there if it was just any effector, but it must be muscle in this case, because in this particular case, in this diagram, it's a muscle. So we've got to watch out for that this means it has to be this circuit, okay? And finally, state the function of a reflex. And well, the purpose of the reflex is here. It is to remove the hand from harm. The hand detects a danger, a signal, we get a pain receptor, and there's an immediate response to remove the hand away. Now, we don't need to go into too much detail for a 1-mark question. The function of a reflex is to protect the body from harm, okay? Harm. You could say quickly protect the body from harm, and it is quick because these circuits act without sending any signals to the brain, and so they're very fast. But you don't need to say that to get the mark in this particular case. Okay, there's just one thing, one potential trap in this question, and we just need to have a quick look at it to make sure that you don't fall foul of this particular problem in your exam. And the problem is this. When we go down here, state how messages are transferred at a synapse, and we say chemicals, one of the things you must not say is chemical messengers. Now, it might be a phrase that we use in biology, but we use that term, chemical messengers, specifically for hormones. And these are not hormones that are being transferred across here. These are not hormones. This is not a gland. And this thing, although it has receptors for these chemicals, it's not the same system. So what's being transferred here is neurotransmitter, and there's various different types depending on the nerve, the neuron and the circuit and the type of cell it is. But we must not write, we can write chemical messages, strangely enough, but we're not allowed to write chemical messengers. There's a wee trap there. If you write chemical messengers in National 5, you're talking about hormones. We talk about hormones as chemical messengers in the body, so it's not a distinct enough answer to the question. All right, there's question 6. All done, nice and quick. Thanks for watching this walkthrough from Doc Hill Study. I hope it helped you feel more confident about tackling these kinds of questions. Remember, the answers I've used are based on the SQA marking guide, but it's always important to understand the reasoning behind them, not just memorize the words. That's why I focus on the process, not just the final answer. If you've got any questions, or if something didn't quite click, drop a comment below and I'll get back to you. If you found this helpful, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified when the next walkthrough goes up. Good luck with your revision, and I'll see you in the next one.